the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals telling the Biden administration no more of this going to social media companies and trying to monitor or tell them what's misinformation or tell them what content they can and can't show. So Rick, I know it'll go to the Supreme Court, and I actually feel very confident there. I usually wouldn't say it that openly because usually the Supreme Court falls down on the line of robust freedom of speech.
The reason why these big tech companies immediately caved, immediately did what the Biden administration was asking, is because they were afraid of the Biden administration's weaponization. You see what Joe Biden and his administration is doing to Donald Trump and all of his supporters by bleeding them with lawfare and going after them and canceling them. So big tech, when they get a phone call from the Joe Biden administration, they immediately bow and they immediately do exactly what the Biden team says because they're afraid of the consequences.
This would include anything that falls basically under the office of the president. So that's all the cabinet, all the secretaries. They specifically named a preliminary injunction on the defendants that were named, which is Joe Biden. I think by just saying Joe Biden, that probably includes the entire government. But it also points out specific individuals who actually were caught engaging in this, the United States Surgeon General's office, HHS Secretary Becerra, so the entire HHS department, and Anthony Fauci. And it said, among others. So I think, again, what happens now is this goes into effect. So if you are one of those government agencies and you're thinking about making a phone call like this, you got to really think twice. Because if it's not like terror or crime related, which, by the way, it wouldn't bar that. If they knew like a huge risk to our country was coming, an emergency, they could go to those social media companies. Now, they shouldn't have to pressure them in that situation. So it's really a totally different matter. But the question now is, this will go into force. The Biden administration will appeal this and try to get the Supreme Court to issue a stay so that it doesn't go into force. I don't know what will happen on the stay provision yet. Those are sometimes difficult to predict. But what I would willing to be able to say is if this goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, more often than not, they side with freedom and they side with robust freedom of speech. They called it lawful but awful. We call it lawful and awful speech should be protected in the United States of America. Because remember, much of our speech, Logan, is designated as awful by the left.
Yeah, exactly. It's all demonized. It's not one way or the other. It's not saying, like you said, you're not talking about terrorist activity. We're not talking about, threats to national security. You're talking about people who just have a differing point of view.
So they are now prohibited, as this Fifth Circuit Court decision stands, from going to social media companies and telling them what to promote and what to censor. The second one is you're going to be in real trouble if you threaten those social media companies into feeling like they have to censure this conduct.
I think there's a lot of people, conservatives, liberals, who actually do believe that you should be able to say, they may not like what you say, but they believe you should have the right to be able to say what you want to say. So I think that's where you hopefully have a bit of you don't have a bipartisan support, but you would hope you would have a bipartisan support. People who just say, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with them or us or whoever, but they should be able to actually say it.
This is huge, folks. The court's finally stepping in and doing the right thing to protect your freedom of speech. I still think this case goes a step further. We're involved both as an amicus and we've got our FOIA out. We're about to sue DOJ, I think as early as today, because they did not provide the information they were supposed to about the communications about censoring, going to social media companies and saying, hey, take down that Hunter Biden laptop. Hey, I don't like what they said about COVID. Take that down. And they did it not just to the biggest names. They would do it to people with just, normal accounts as well. And a lot of people quit. I think that was their goal. Let's make conservatives not use a platform where it's very easy to reach millions of people.